Could you tell them what sort of a person you are?
I don't know at all. I just live moment to moment. So you cannot confine me into a personality. You cannot define me. You cannot predict me. I don't know even myself what I am going to do tomorrow morning. I am simply as open as the existence and as indefinable as the existence itself.
What's up, guys? Welcome back once again. Goddamn, today I have a very special guest, which I'm very excited to talk to. And I'm gonna go ahead. She's done this before. She's already a pro at all this, so I feel like I'm the student here. But I'm gonna give you a little introduction from what I know, and I'll let her fill in the blanks. So Sydney, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, thanks for coming.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it, especially considering the podcast that you've already been on. This is like the baby podcast. You've already been on Mommy and Daddy podcast.
You know, I think that the relationship that I have with you and the life experience that you have pays more than some of the other podcasts that I've been on.
Damn.
So,
thank you.
for what it's worth.
That's worth a lot.
Well, good.
That's a serious compliment. And to speak on the introduction part, how we know each other, we actually met at the gym. Like some other of my guests, I feel like it's a really great place to meet people, because nobody goes to the gym to try to like make their lives worse, you know. Generally speaking, you'll see everyone there trying to make an attempt to better themselves.
Absolutely.
So there's a similar mindset in that, but on an even more specific level, you're on the fucking Jacob's ladder, which I've said this once before in episode 1, real recognize real. Not a lot of people get up on that thing.
No, it's a tough one.
So seeing each other, battle with that, I'd say there had to be some kind of, connection. Like, oh man, this motherfucker understands.
Right? If you've done the Jacob's Ladder, you're hard.
And yeah, exactly. So we both are, by definition, pretty hard. But on the other side of that, we've talked a little bit here and there. And what I'm so excited about for this podcast is we haven't gotten too in depth on like a profound level, Like I know enough about you to know that I would like to have you on this podcast, because my only real criteria for someone to be here is they have to inspire me in some way or another. I have to look up to them in some way or another. And you fit both of those criteria.
Thank you.
So, yeah, of course.
Even though you physically look down to me. You're pretty tall.
Okay, yeah, I guess if you want to say it like that. But, so, that's it. And that's my perception and understanding of you right now. But why don't you give your own little, I know it's a hard, who are you, is a hard question.
It is an interesting question, and I like it.
Answer it fully.
Right?
To the maximum extent of your capabilities.
I think that who I am has evolved significantly over the course of and I think this probably goes for a lot of people, right? Where it's your adolescence and the experiences that shaped you to who you are, and the people that had a part in that, all the way through what you experience, life experience, and how that shapes you. And so the gym analogy is so true, because you meet people that are not trying to make their life worse, right? Then there's also the component of how there's every once in a while you meet somebody where there's a mirror there, regardless of if it's acknowledged or not.
Yeah.
And so I think that mirror was, whether I recognized it in the moment or not, something that I saw in you. And as we scratched away at the surface, it was like him and I might have been through similar things that have shaped similar experiences. And I don't know if that's intuition or what, but it happens to me a lot where I feel like God puts somebody in my life where he just says this person is going to be a part of your life. And I don't know ever what that looks like, and I always let it unfold naturally, but it's really cool, the people that I meet with such random context most of the time. But
Hold on, I wanted, before I forget, take this opportunity to, like, for people that might not put themselves in that kind of setting a lot, they don't work out or whatever. I don't know about for you, because I can only speak for myself, but I don't make friends all the time at the gym.
Right.
Like, where you,
right.
like, usually it's headphones in and you might see someone there, you know, fucking 10 times before you get them a fist bump without any words being exchanged.
Yeah.
So for people watching that, don't think that everybody just goes to the gym and they fucking go up and hug each other and they're
Social hour.
immediately best friends. That's not usually how this works. So what she's describing is actually, at least again for me, not a very common occurrence. So I like how you put that mirror reference and analogy out there.
Yeah. Yeah, it is cool. And you're right. It's not usually social hour outside of maybe the similar faces that you see. Describing me, like, I think of this really pathetic sheet that I did one time when I was a kid in counseling. And this is a lot of the times for kids that have no concrete sense of identity for whatever the reason is, whether it's that you don't have parent figures in your life or whatnot.
Sure.
And it has these just broad character traits, and you can pick up to like 25, and it's honesty, family, integrity, strength, all
character traits that you believe that you possess.
Right, but it's a list of like 75, 50.
Okay.
It's a lot.
So basically all of them.
All of them that you can think of. They just pull them from the dictionary, and then you circle the 25 that you want to be your outermost. These are important to me. Maybe they're not
Your
a
values,
factor in my. It's a value system.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not maybe part of my everyday life. And then you pick the 10, and then your 5 core things, right? So I think that integrity is for sure one of those. And
since how old were you when you did this?
13, I think.
Okay.
13 or 14.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that looks like a lot of different things in different contexts, probably. But all in all, just the all-encompassing of being honest in what you do and having the courage to mean what you say and do what you say you're going to do. The follow-through behind that is what separates, for example, just honesty from integrity to me. Work ethic is huge to me. Courage or bravery. And I think that a lot of people that have overcome some of the things that just on the surface level I know you and I have overcome allow that to shape their entire life in a negative way. And I want that narrative to change for everybody just through sharing my story and my experiences. And faith, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a big word that has not yet come into our.
It hasn't come into our conversation.
But I mean, it's kind of, a little perfect for what we're eventually going to get to. But I really, really am glad that you brought that up. Values is something that I talk about a lot. And, not until recently in my life have I really gone over my pathetic little sheet, right, in my head.
Sure.
And actually tangibly in real life, because I've gone through some counseling and done all these other little things too, in an attempt to better understand myself. And I think assessing the values that you have, and possibly equally, if not more important, the values that you envision yourself having is huge. I think that's who you are. And part of my journey was at one point taking a look at the values that if I imagined myself as the man that I wanted to be, it would be these things, these 5 things. And that gave me a chance to actually look at it and be like, damn, I'm not hitting a couple of these.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Integrity was one that, sure, we all could instantly say, oh yeah, I have integrity, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But the thing about integrity is only you can know if you really have it or not.
Amen. Yep, that's
because
the truth.
What it comes down to is it's what you do when nobody's looking, right? It's doing the right thing without any kind of gratification or validation for it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And it's self-gratification. And that's something that I recently discovered in myself is a big one for me, because that self-gratification weighs a lot heavier than, surface level validation.
Undoubtedly. Yeah. That's something that I'm still figuring out when I think you're growing up and have these key people that you go to for advice. We, by nature, look for approval in those people that shaped us. And then if there ever comes a point in your life, which this has happened a resounding amount of times now for me, it's that I'm no longer getting that approval. I have to make a decision that either their advice supersedes how I feel about a situation, and that I'm going to alter my train of thought or my course of action in order to facilitate how do I get this person's gratification.
Right.
Or it's, I appreciate that feedback. This is what I'm convicted in, and this is what I'm going to do. And then allowing that internal voice to be enough.
And now that person who, had a kind of impact on you in the sense of shaping who you were, validation is not as valuable.
Right.
Would you say?
I think that it can be that way. If it happens reoccurringly, that probably is more related to a thought pattern of being able to isolate, this isn't a reflection of this person. Maybe it's a reflection of this person's views about this situation, but it doesn't have to impact my long-term relationship with them, maybe.
Sure.
There's been a couple situations where profound people in my life haven't agreed with what I've decided to do, and it has ultimately affected the relationship with some of them, and then others I can still appreciate where they were coming from, and that their advice came from a place of love, and ultimately still decide that that's just not the way that I'm going to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you ever find yourself, and I hate to use this word because I don't want the connotation to kind of misconstrue the feeling, but outgrowing these people that are idols at one point or another?
Yeah, I like that question. That's a good one. So my dad is the first person that comes to mind. I was raised by a single dad for all intents and purposes. And he was that voice for me. He was the one that everything that I was doing in life, I fact-checked that through my dad.
Okay.
Lots of people do. He's actually a really well-known person in northern Colorado and some other states too, just on a corporate level with his business success. And so people call him from all over the United States asking for his advice and his, consulting ability regarding lots of things, lots of things.
Yeah, he's done it and he's succeeded.
Been there,
in it.
he's
like,
done
let
that.
me get guidance, right?
Right. And so it's great. And there's a lot of things that I do value his advice on, specifically in a business perspective. But yeah, I think that it does change the way that you maybe respect people to a degree through those experiences. You also learn at a certain point that we're all just I think it was when how old was I? I was 22, and it clicked for me. I was like, my dad's just another guy trying to figure it out. He doesn't have it all together. He has a lot of life experience, but he's not perfect. He's not the genie in a bottle. He doesn't know everything.
Right.
And then I was able to filter all of his advice from then on of this is coming from a place of, I love my daughter. I want to protect her from everything that I can.
Right.
Some of that wisdom, because of that lens, though, was rooted in fear.
A little biased,
yeah. For sure. And so he was able to give these other big wigs advice on things
that he wouldn't necessarily...
It would not encourage me to do necessarily because of that filter.
So figuring that out for yourself was kind of groundbreaking.
Totally.
In a sense of figuring out what you believe to be the right way to go about something.
It was freeing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you have multiple inputs of thought, as opposed to just that one solid straight line.
And now I want to network with people that have also done it, maybe even that know him, but that are not blood related to me, because I get this perspective that maybe he would give his friends and colleagues that he would never give me being his daughter.
Sure.
And I can cross-reference that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's cool. That's really good. And, while we're kind of just teetering on the subject, I wanted to bring this up because one of the reasons that, you inspire me enough to ask you to come on this show is because of the things that I do know about you. I know that, you're veritably young, okay?
Yeah.
I hate to say that because I am too, but I'm also veritably old. It's just a matter of, relation and perspective.
We have birthdays coming up.
We do.
Yeah.
But you're a business owner and you work very hard, and I would say, I can't speak to the exact. What's the exact numbers that you pull in your net worth? I'm just kidding. I'm not going to. But from what I can tell, you know, it sounds to me like you manage a strong team of individuals that you give them goals and they follow through and they achieve those. And I think for any age, that's an impressive characteristic. And so that's why the first thing that pinged in my head, like, man, this person could have some valuable insight to offer other people. And that's the whole reason I fucking do this, is because one day my kids are going to watch this, probably when I die. They're not going to watch it while I'm alive because they could just fucking ask me.
Sure.
But when I die, they're going to be like, damn, how cool was my dad again? And then they'll go back on this and be like, oh shit, Sydney. And hopefully learn something.
There you go.
You
Yeah,
know?
absolutely.
But your business, I'm going to fucking toss it up right here. So
Right.
tell me, because I want everyone to click on the link should they ever find themselves in need of some paintless dent repair.
Yeah, that's one of the big ones that we do right now. That's been my main focus. It's really insurance claims. What I've done is create
What's
a
the what's the
structure.
name for the link?
For the paintless dent repair, it's Finest Auto Hail Repair. And there's the link for that. And then I have another one. We don't have the website up yet, and it's because it's structured as a brokerage. So what I
Okay.
usually do is I'll route them to my partners. And so Curtin Exterior Home Restoration does, we just do the shopping for you. So when a hailstorm comes through in Colorado, which is inevitable out here, your roof needs fixed, your paint got messed up, your windows got broken, we do that. And we
Medical
just,
bills from golf ball to the head.
Man, I don't have
You do
that one figured out
Okay.
yet.
Not that yet.
No.
We're getting there.
No MA.
Okay.
But yeah, we just source it out to local vetted companies that are BBB accredited and have been around for over the average time span of those businesses. Insurance claims are really fly by night. So you get these pop-up companies that come in from Texas and Oklahoma and other states that frequently have that type of weather. They'll
Sure.
pop up a 3-month stand in their Audi. And so I partner.
We'll see those all over the place.
All
soon.
over the place. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's constant. And so what we do is we just have partnerships with places that have permanent locations and warranties and are tested and accredited by local Coloradoans so that we know who we're working with.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, yeah, before we forgot, that's
I appreciate
one
it.
thing that I wanted to make sure that everyone knew about, because it's impressive. You know, it is. And I don't care. You're probably not going to say the same thing, because I have a feeling that you're that you have some humility to you, maybe a little humble.
I hope
So it's
so.
hard for people to come here and brag on themselves, but I want to brag on you as much as I can. So with that being said, I think it's now a good time for me to jump into something that you talked about earlier, and you said faith as you only mentioned 4.
Did I say 4?
You only said 4.
I mean, I could
I was
come up
waiting
with
for
a
the
fifth.
5th one, because
We
you
were hanging out.
talked about how you narrowed it down to your top 5, and I think that's a good number. But then you went through 4 of them.
Maybe I have a 5th that rotates based on the stage of life. that
Rotating
I'm in.
5th.
A rotating 5th.
Everyone should have that.
Probably a good idea.
Yeah.
So like core 4, rotating 5th. You just have this blank space
Yep.
available.
Cool. But I am going to focus on the 4th one.
I'm
that
ready
you
for
said.
it.
And I might play this back and realize that you did say 5 and I'm just an idiot. But faith. That's something that you talked about. And that's something that we have never talked about. So I'm like super excited to hear this for the first time.
All right.
Along with everybody else that's about to watch this.
I'm ready.
But the whole idea of this is to seek understanding and insight into a concept that is really undefinable and nonlinear and completely independent of the person who holds said belief.
Sure.
So my question, Sydney, what is God to you?
God is love. God is eternal. God is a Trinity. All-knowing, all-powerful, perfect in his ways and his intention.
Okay. I'm getting somewhat of a Christian background.
Definitely Christian background, but I was not raised Christian. And I
Okay.
think that differentiates me from a lot of people that
So you found it on your own.
I did.
It's not your worldview.
it's not my worldview.
Okay.
No.
Tell me a little bit about that. Speak to that. How did that happen?
Well, so my mom was a drug addict growing up.
Okay.
And she took her own life when I was turning 13. It was in December, and we have February birthdays, so it's a weird cusp. I was turning 13. And there was a lot of abuse growing up. There was a very, very broken home. And so I had heard people talk about this God guy, and I had heard my parents even mention it, like, well, maybe we should just go to church, as if this is the universal Band-Aid.
Right.
So you just throw it on there, it's going to fix it.
Right.
We even went to a church for a little while towards the end of my mom's life, and I just remember thinking, like, what is this fixing? Because one day a week we'd go to this building, and sometimes we would leave that same day, that same building, with them just yelling at each other. And it's like, this means nothing to me. And
especially as a young 13-year-old, like, what you're seeing and
yeah.
hearing is what you're experiencing life.
If anything, it made me angry at whatever this God guy was.
Yeah.
For a really, really long time. And it was when I was 20 years old, I got pregnant with my oldest daughter. And my dad didn't like her biological dad. And when I told him I was pregnant, the first words out of his mouth were, well, we have to go find an adoption agency. And so, yeah, it was like there was no conversation about
your father said
my
this.
dad said
the one
this.
who at this point in your life is still the genie in the bottle.
Yeah, at that point in my life, he absolutely was. And this was one of those pivotal moments where it transitioned from no longer being somebody that gets to make decisions for me.
Sure.
But yeah, it was, we're going to find an adoption agency, and that'll be what it is, and you can move on with your life. So he kicked me out of the condo that I rented from him because I had told him I wasn't set in adoption, that I was going to consider parenting. I didn't believe in abortion. Even from a non-religious perspective, I've always been pro-life. Different topic. But yeah, so I went through 4 or 5 months just homeless for a short period of it.
And pregnant.
Pregnant, yep. Trying to figure it out. I was going to Ames Community College at the time.
Nice.
I was working at an event marketing job like 2 days a week. My life was a shit show. It was in shambles. And I was so mad at God. So it's like, so now I've lost my mom. My relationship with my dad is deteriorating.
Yeah.
My dad had turned my entire family against me. They'd cut me out of my will. They'd sent me emails saying, if you don't place this child for adoption, we want nothing to do with you. And there was one person, and it was my dad's best friend at the time, said, I'm not going to tell Sydney she has to place this child for adoption. He had gone to the church that he was going to at the time and said, I need you guys to talk to Sydney and tell her she can't have this child. And the label that my mom had been given, for background context, she had been stapled with borderline personality disorder.
Okay.
My dad had this impression that I was also that, and it was not diagnosed or anything at the time. There were just obviously genetic components and behavioral things, as my mom, that he would witness in me. And it was, she cannot have a kid because look what her mom did to her. And wanting to just prevent, probably from a father's standpoint, this generational trauma that kept repeating itself, which I can appreciate now. At the time, I didn't. So 4 months, 5 months along, I called an agency and just wanted information about it. Was not resolved in any of the decisions. And we went all the way through the process. I never signed anything.
An
you don't have to.
agency?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I just was like, look, I'm not set in adoption.
Right.
I want to know more about it. All of the voices in my life at the time that had shaped me to be who I was telling me that I wasn't enough. And that I was incapable of raising my own child.
Yeah.
That had been given to me. And I just remember feeling like if I actually am going to be as bad of a mom as my mom was to me, then I would be doing a disservice to my daughter to keep her. And that really shaped the rest of my pregnancy with her. There was almost this level of emotional detachment where I was afraid to be attached to her if I wasn't what was best for her.
Yeah.
So
you, in a lot of ways, you were almost starting to internalize the things that you've been being told
100%.
about yourself, and maybe even believing it and thinking like, damn, you know, maybe all these people are right.
Absolutely.
Even though that's not how you felt deep down.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I did believe it. I believed it to my core. I just didn't know what to do because now I have 4 months left, and the only thing that matters is what am I doing for my daughter? Everything else was a back burner problem at that point. This was like the focal point of my life.
Yeah.
So we get through all of the paperwork. I eventually get matched with a family. They promise me an open adoption, and that's another thing that I'm working on is changing law surrounding open adoption because that has not held up on that end either. But we're at the hospital where we go through delivery. I have her on my own. they're at the hospital, but I
Sure.
have her on my own. And I'm on night 2 with her. And the adoptive parents come into the room and they say, hey, we're going to give you the night to think about this, to think about if this is really what you want to do.
You hadn't signed, it wasn't
I hadn't
set in
signed,
stone.
nothing was set in stone. But at this point, I had moved into a townhouse that I was renting, not from my dad, with my significant other at the time. And it was not my daughter's biological dad. I had left him early on after discovering some things that, like, I'm not raising a kid with you, sort of thing. So I'm living in a townhouse. We don't have any baby stuff. I don't have a car seat. I don't have outfits for her. I've got nothing. And I had kind of done that intentionally because of all of the doubt that had been planted in my mind.
The
detachment thing. It's like nothing in this world is what I've come to learn. Nothing in this world belongs to you. It's all an experience. Like my kids, even that I raise now in my home, they're not my possession. My job is to shape and influence them to be the best version of themselves that they can be. And so I had that moment in the hospital where I'm holding my daughter. It's like 2 a.m. I haven't slept this whole time. And just supernaturally, I have these flashbacks in my life of all of the times where it felt like God showing me, do you see where I protected you here and here and here? Times where I should have died, whether it was drunk driving or being in a dangerous situation with people I didn't know. Things that my mom had done that probably should have killed me or resulted in me being kidnapped and sex trafficked. Just like crazy things that I've been through in my life. And the whole room just went still, like dead still. And I just heard this voice say, I need you to trust me now. And that was it. And I didn't know what else it could be other than God.
So that was like your spiritual awakening.
It was.
Damn.
And I broke down in tears. And in that moment, that was when I realized my daughter doesn't belong to me. She's not my possession. And despite every fiber of my being wanted to be the best for her, that wanted to raise her, that wanted to be not just her birth mom or physical mom, but her mom that influences and shapes her to be the best person that she can be in this world, I knew in that moment that I would be compromising her initial start to life by trying to do it alone. And so I called her adoptive mom back into the room and I said, like, she belongs to God before she belongs to me. And now she belongs to you before she belongs to me. And I just need you to make me one promise, and that you're never going to take her from me. And she promised. That still hasn't been held up. And so now I'm actively changing.
That's where the issue with the open
legislate.
adoption
Yeah. So that's where the open adoption issue comes in. But in that moment, that was God speaking to me. And now I do have 2 kids that I raise in my home, and I get to love them to pieces too. And I see how God has shaped me from that moment ever since.
Wow. That's powerful.
Thank you.
That got me tearing up a little bit.
So, it's just the lights. I think you're...
It's I love that. I really love hearing people's experiences like that. I'll never get tired of it. I think it's a beautiful thing, and I fully believe in it. And I think, opening your spirituality up to something, it doesn't have to be necessarily defined, you know what I mean, is life-changing, and I think you've experienced that.
Yeah. Well, and I think that God is undefinable too by nature.
Sure.
Society paints him to be this.
If it was
white
definable,
Jesus
we
thing.
wouldn't be here.
have this podcast,
Exactly.
right? Yeah, society paints it to be this white Jesus concept, and historically speaking, all of what the United States has as this traditional view of Christianity are actually predominantly Catholic ideology and beliefs, and that's where the whole white Jesus thing comes into play. Jesus, as we know him historically, would have been Arabic, Hebrew origins,
Right.
and so it's just very misconstrued. And I think that when you get too lost in the details of things like that, that's where people really get lost in it.
And put it into a context that we can try to understand.
Right.
Because it is a concept that is pretty wild.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
But I really, any kind of biblical literature or any kind of really religious literature at all is not going to take away from the experience that you had.
Right.
No matter what the Bible said, no matter what you had come to experience God as at that point, you felt it, you heard it, and I think that's I couldn't have asked for a better explanation for that question.
Okay.
So I really, really appreciate you being here and sharing all that with me.
Thanks for having me again. Yeah.
And the fucking world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. She deserves her story to be told too, you know? Like
Yeah.
she was there, obviously, but that's not where you have cognitive memory.
Right.
There's a very preconceived notion that children that are placed for adoption either weren't wanted or mom was homeless or broke. I was none of those things by the time I got all the way to delivery. My pregnancy start was rough, but by the time I had gotten there, I would have figured it out.
Yeah.
Like, come hell or high water, if that's the way that I had gone, it would have gotten done. But that is part of her story, and she deserves to know that she was fought for. There's
Absolutely.
adoption agencies used to say, give up the baby. Like, do you want to give up the baby when talking
Yeah.
with prospective pregnant moms? I hate that terminology. It's very dated. It's from the Baby Scoop. I did everything except give up,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, you said something that I just want to reiterate one time because nobody has ever said it to me or on this show, but we don't own anything, and our children are not our possessions. I think that's a really fucking amazing way to think about life, because I think, you know, even in my experience, people will take kids from their parents for whatever reason or another, and I think it's good to remind ourselves that those don't belong to us,
Right,
just like we don't belong to anybody.
right.
So thank you, even just for that.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate it. You know, we're right at that 30 minutes. I got to ask if there's anything else, burning desires that you want to get out to the world before we end this episode. I'm still shaking a little bit. See that? Just a little.
Is the caffeine, though?
No.
No, I don't think there's anything that comes to mind, but there probably will be in the future, I bet.
Okay. All right. Well, then, if that's the case, Sydney, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
coming on this.
Absolutely.
You're great. You're very well spoken, very articulate. And with that, Josh, we good? I'm gonna close this out. We're gonna close this out. All right, here we go. All right, guys, that's it. Another one. Goodbye forever. Until next time. Goddamn.